Beijing's Bloody Sunday is history now, but there are visible reminders everywhere of the shocking massacre that occurred here. Burned-out buses and other vehicles are scattered in many sections of the Chinese capital, and the curious are now venturing out of their homes to look at the smoldering aftermath of the violent attack that dealt a staggering blow to the pro-democracy movement in this country. The brutal assault by an estimated 30,000 Chinese troops ended at Tiananmen Square in the heart of Beijing, where thousands of students had been staging a sit-in for democracy for the past 3 weeks. In a last-ditch effort to stop the army, demonstrators tossed firebombs on armored personnel carriers and tanks as they rumbled into the square early Sunday morning. But it was impossible to stop the advance, and eventually the students were forced to evacuate. Soldiers fired automatic weapons into crowds of civilians, and the casualties were staggering. The Chinese Red Cross says at least 2,600 people were killed. The students claim thousands of others were wounded. There has been no official casualty announcement from the Chinese government. Defiant demonstrators have been continuing to skirmish with the army despite its overwhelming presence in and around Tiananmen Square. At one point, they set an ambulance on fire and aimed it at the troops, but the vehicle smashed into a traffic island, and that prompted the soldiers to open fire once more on the students. This morning, troops were seen severely beating demonstrators in the Forbidden City district near the square, and at least 3 of them were arrested. The Goddess of Democracy statue has been toppled by Chinese troops. Student leaders have gone into hiding, and there are now fears the army may move against student sanctuaries on university campuses in the northern part of the capital. Many buses are not running today. Thousands of workers are staying home, and there is talk that a general strike is being organized to protest the communist regime's brutal response to the student demands for democratic reforms. Gary Shepard, ABC News, Beijing.
has been recognized by the Governor General's Innovation Awards.
This work can't be done without teamwork.
She and the team at the National Microbiology Lab have been praised for developing an Ebola vaccine. But just over a week ago, Chu, her husband, and her students from China were evicted from Canada's only Level 4 lab, their security access revoked. Staff at the lab was told last Monday the couple is on leave and not to communicate with them. We're getting this from sources who work at the lab, but who don't want to be identified for fears they'll be punished. They say this is coming just months after IT specialists entered Chu's office after hours and replaced her computer, and her superiors stopped authorizing work trips to China. Manitoba RCMP confirmed it was called in by the Public Health Agency of Canada on May 24th. A spokesperson says the agency is investigating a policy breach, calling it an administrative matter, and it's taking steps to resolve it expeditiously. We can assure Canadians that there is no risk to the public and that the work of the NML continues in support of the health and safety of all Canadians.
All this, of course, is unproven, but even microbiology, sometimes especially microbiology, can have issues that involve national security.
It's something CSIS has already warned about.
Canada is facing threats from foreign espionage, and not just in the traditional sense of trying to understand what our national security interests are and agencies are involved with, but threats to our economic security.
Canada's relationship with China has been strained ever since the detention of a Huawei executive on a U.S. arrest warrant. Shortly after, China detained 2 Canadians, accusing them of stealing state secrets. This likely won't go over well and could even deepen the diplomatic divide. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.